And for more on the ASEAN Summit, I'm joined by Scott Bates, and he is the president of the Center for National Policy at the Truman National Security Project, a progressive think tank right here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the broadcast.
It's great to be with you.
We really appreciate you being here. So we know that much of the focus of this summit is going to be on the South China Sea, the territorial rights to oil and gas exploration there. Also, fishing in the South China Sea have been debated for years. Why did the tensions actually flare this past year?
Well, I think what you're really looking at is that China has come into its own after a long time when it was on the international sidelines, and China feels that these are the historic claims, they're historic borders. On the other hand, there are several nations and claimants there that believe those waters belong to them too. And really, this is the one area where the U.S. and China could come into conflict, and why a code of conduct is really important between the U.S. military and the Chinese military. Both militaries operate in that zone, in the international waters, the airspace. The stakes are far too high for there to be something like there was in 2001 when there was an air incident that really stalled progress in relations between the two nations.
Scott, China has become the largest user of energy in the world. Is this part of what's putting so much pressure on it?
Yeah, China has a very impressive strategy in how to secure its energy future. But, you know, the U.S. is actually more secure than China right now. We were scrambling a few years ago, but now we have this shale oil bonanza and gas bonanza where the U.S. is almost energy self-sufficient. Yet China's demands are huge and growing. So, yes, the South China Sea is one element of that. And I think that means that the U.S. and China have something in common. They need stability. They need to be able to plan. And we're talking about multi-billion-dollar investments in energy in that region. The sooner that everybody comes to an accord, the better.
You mentioned the code of conduct. That's been a lot of the buzz going into this meeting. A small mishap could actually escalate into a full-on fledged conflict. Do we expect there to be concrete steps taken?
I think you'll see that. I think the stakes are too high for there not to be progress in that regard. The U.S. and Soviet Union, over their 40-year rivalry, had very robust series of exchanges and information sharing. This relationship starts from a much better place than that, and so we should at least be at that level of cooperation. We're not yet, and I think we have to both go forward in an air of confidence and an air of trust as well.
Regarding ISIL and Ebola, we know China has been very generous donating to stop the fight, to stop the spread of Ebola. But what about ISIL? Will we see a political stand from these member nations? You know,
we'll see. I hope so. I think it's in everyone's interest, certainly on keeping radicals from going into that area. Everybody has that similar interest. And I think it's interesting to note that China is increasing its presence and its aid in Afghanistan as well. So China, again, becoming a confident regional power, and that can aid in stability in the region in places like Afghanistan and potentially Iraq as well.
What do you expect to hear from some of the new members present, like members who will be present, like India's president?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's an exciting time because you have the world's largest democracy, India. I think it's maybe the number 2 or 3, which is Indonesia. They're going to be at the ASEAN Summit as well, which comes right on the heels of APEC. It really goes to show that this part of the world is the driving force for the 21st century. The United States is firmly in Asia and a productive player in that region. And so I think it's something to be welcomed that people want to be part of what's happening at these summits.
Scott Bates, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.